He was 20, hiding behind jokes and lies, until a single weekend in the mountains with his mother's old friend, Wade tore away the mask. A cabin filled with firelight turned into a place of forbidden breath, stolen touches, and promises that could never be spoken aloud. Each meeting pulled them deeper into a bond too strong to deny and too dangerous to expose. But whispers in town sharpened into accusations. Neighbors circled like hunters, and Wade betrayed him with a single word before the board. No. Love became a wound, protection a prison, and survival a punishment. Letters unsent, shadows at windows, and the kind of silence that burns louder than confession, a very scene tighter, heavier, unbearable. Was it love or just the ghost of it? And when the world forces you to choose between truth and survival, which one would you sacrifice first? I was 20 and still lying to myself. I could charm a classroom, fake a crush, and dodge any question that came too close to the truth. When Mom said her old friend Wade had a spare cabin in the Adirondacks if I needed to clear my head, I said yes like it was casual. It wasn't. I didn't know what I was running toward until I saw him again. The drive from Syracuse felt like pressing mute on my life. By the time the pines opened and the roofline appeared, my hands were aching from the wheel. Wade stood in the yard splitting logs, flannel sleeves rolled, steam lifting off him in the cold. He looked up and grinned like we were the same age, like time hadn't stretched between us. Ethan, he said, like a surprise and a relief. We hugged. It lasted a second too long. His jacket smelled like smoke and cedar. When he let go, something stayed some charge that made my chest tight and my jokes feel useless. Inside, the fire cracked with a soft, animal patience. He poured whiskey into mismatched mugs and sat across from me, one knee loose, one hand around the glass, watching without prying. We talked about nothing, drive, the cold, the neighbor's generator that refused to start. Then the nothing thinned, and I told him I was tired of pretending to be the version of myself people liked. He didn't try to fix it. He just said, "You don't have to pretend here." The room seemed to lean toward those words. I don't know who moved first. Maybe I did. Maybe he did. It happened in the space between a breath and a dare. The slow reach of his hand to the back of my neck. The way he waited. The way I didn't pull away. Our mouths met like we'd both been standing at the same locked door for years and finally found a key. Heat roared through me, not wild, not messy, just devastatingly clear. All the jokes I'd used as armor dropped to the floor with the ash. I woke before dawn in sheets that still held his warmth. Wade stood at the stove, shirtless under an open flannel, making coffee like nothing about the world had tilted. He slid a mug to me and didn't mention the night. He didn't need to. His fingers brushed mine, and everything urgent and unsafe inside me said stay. We hiked after breakfast. No rifle, no target, just crunching snow and breath. He walked beside me, not ahead. Every so often our sleeves touched, and my whole body recalibrated around that point of contact. I kept waiting for guilt to arrive with a speech it didn't. What came instead was a frightening, simple easias. If a crowded room in my chest finally emptied and I could hear myself think. That evening the silence turned intimate again. He asked for no promises. I made none. It still felt like stepping into a life I was sure I was allowed to want. But when he said my name under his breath, low and steady, the doubt cracked. Morning broke through frost like a thin blade. I packed to leave and hated my own hands for folding shirts that smelled like him. At the door he pressed a knuckle to my shoulder and said, "No pressure. Come back if it feels right." I nodded like a rational person, but the moment his arm brushed mine, something in me shattered for good part that believed I could go back to pretending. I drove away anyway, almost proud of my discipline. 10 minutes down the road I pulled over and laughed at myself because discipline had nothing to do with it. I wasn't leaving a place. I was leaving a truth that had already moved in. The kid who faked a crush was gone. In his place was someone terrified, awake, and ruined in the best possible way. Back on campus, vending machines clicked and hallway lights hummed like they were mocking me. Friends asked how the woods were, and I said, cold, because the real answer was dangerous. That night I lay awake feeling the ghost of his hand at my ribs, the warmth at my jaw, the quiet afterward. I had spent years rehearsing a stranger. In one weekend I forgot my lines. I thought I understood control. Then Wade looked at me in firelight, and the person I used to be simply broke. Classes resumed like a conveyor belt. Wade's voice ran under the lectures like a low current I couldn't shut off. I kept catching myself smiling at nothing and it scared me more than finals. The first consequence arrived in the locker room. Liam, my roommate, tossed a towel at me. You look different. I lied with momentum. Sleep, he squinted, or someone. I laughed too quickly. The sound felt borrowed. At night, I opened our family chat, typed Wade's name into a blank message, and deleted it. I told myself the cabin was a detour, a glitch. Then I dreamed in flannel and smoke, and woke with my heart sprinting like it wanted out. On Thursday, Wade texted, "Safe, eating?" I stared until the words warmed. I wrote back, trying. He sent a photo of the lake, the ice skinning over like glass. Caption, "Quiet doesn't judge." My chest loosened. Consequence 2. I drove back up Friday after class, pretending it was for air. Snow dusted the shoulders of the road. The cabin lights drew a soft geometry against the dark. He opened the door, smiling like he'd been listening for my tires. We didn't talk first. Heat from the room reached for the cold in my coat. He took my glove off slowly, like the gesture needed time. His fingers paused at my wrist. The world narrowed to that small press. Saturday morning he set a long case on the table. "You said you've never hunted," he said. "Well, start with breath, not bullets." He led me into the trees, showing me how to place my feet so the snow accepted them. We stopped near a ridge where the wind changed and listened. "Your body tells a story before you do," he murmured. "Slow it." We watched a buck step into a pocket of light. Wade's hand rested between my shoulders, steadying, not pushing. He lifted the rifle, then lowered it. Not today. I exhaled something I didn't know I was holding. We walked back in earned hush. Consequence 3. Intimacy bleeds into daylight. He cooked eggs. I folded his dish towels like I lived here. He brushed crumbs from my lip with his thumb, and I forgot the doorway between us ever existed. "Stay tonight," he said, and because saying no would have been a lie, I stayed. The first contact that mattered wasn't the kiss. It was how he met the parts of me I kept locked. When I said, "I don't know what to call this," he said, "Nothing yet." When I said, "I'm scared of being seen," he said, "Then I'll look away until you're ready." We sat shoulder to shoulder, the fire practicing soft applause. My head found his collarbone like a place I used to know. Sunday was a test. Could I carry this home without dropping it for the world to point at? Liam asked if I'd gone back to the mountains. "Yeah," he grinned. "Peace or just better coffee?" "Both," I said, escaping into the shower where steam turned my ribs into a mirror. I traced the place his hand had paused, and the mirror didn't argue. Mom called. "How's your head?" I told her the truth sideways. "Quieter, thank Wade," she said, like his name was aspirin. I promised I would, and didn't say the gratitude was already delivered in 100 small silences. That night Wade sent 4 words. "Next weekend, sunrise hunt." I typed yes before rereading. He added, "Or we stay in and hunt excuses." I felt the laugh in my chest before it reached my mouth. I knew costs were coming gossip, a line crossed, the way small towns keep score, but the first contact with the man himself had already rewritten my balance sheet. I thought I understood discreet wanting, then his breath found my neck in a dark hallway, and the quiet I'd been chasing found me back. I lay awake counting consequences like sheep. New eyes, new rules, new fear, new courage. The numbers didn't help. What helped was the memory of snow accepting my step, because I was finally learning how to move without apology. In that private arithmetic I had already chosen, outside a plow passed throwing ice. The week stretched like a wire too tight. I studied, nodded, ate, and left pieces of myself in every room, as if I needed breadcrumbs to find my way back to the cabin. Wade and I texted about practical nothing salt for the steps, the pilot light, and neighbor's dog. Beneath every message was a second message, "Come back." I answered with gas money. I arrived late Friday, headlights cutting through a sift of snow. Wade opened the door before I knocked, hair damp, sleeves shoved to his elbows. "Road okay?" he asked, reading the rest on my face. "Barely," I said, stepping into heat that smelled like coffee and pine. He took my coat, then rested a palm on my back, giving my body a chance to say no. It didn't. We ate at the counter-grilled cheese, a little burnt, pickles from the jar. Music played, low and blue. He told me about a job in Utica stalled by a bad supplier. I told him about a professor who loved questions more than answers. "My kind of person," Wade said. The power fluttered and went out. The room folded into candlelight. We moved closer to the fire like we were being summoned. Wade dealt a card game I pretended to know. He noticed. "You could just tell me," he said. "I could," I answered, and neither of us was talking about the rules. The generator failed and left the night honest. Wade tossed a blanket over our knees. Our shoulders met and stayed. That was the kind of touch that didn't ask for witnesses. It asked for breath. Hunters go out before dawn, he said. But there's another lesson you skipped. I looked at him, listening. He nodded, tracking what isn't trying to be found. He set the cards aside and watched me. I said, if im a trail, im not marked. He said, I know where you turn. His hand hovered over my chest without landing. My heart answered anyway. He waited until I nodded, then let his palm rest, heat spreading through cotton, through skin, through doors I lock by habit. The first spark didn't look like fireworks. It looked like small permissions, my knee angling toward him, his thumb drawing a slow circle over my shirt, my breath catching and choosing not to apologize. When he leaned in, he did it like a question with a safe exit. I closed the exit. We kissed once and paused. You good? He asked. Yes, I said, meaning the kind of yes that rearranges walls. He smiled and kissed me again. The world narrowed to the heat of his breath, the line of his jaw. He traced my ribs with the back of his fingers, then stopped where bone gave way to the soft map. I never let anyone read. He stayed there, patient. I felt the warmth of him through his shirt, the measured weight of his body as he pulled me close without taking anything. We lived for a minute in that almost, letting the tension do the work. Tell me if you need to slow down, he said into the place below my ear. I will, I answered. The blanket slid to the floor, the fire cracked, then settled. Snow pressed at the glass, but inside time unclenched. I learned the landscape of him the way you learn a safe path in the dark, one step, then the next, then a stain of recognition that felt older than us. His hand found the back of my neck again, and my pulse steadied under it. We kissed until the want quieted into warmth, until the heat stopped asking, and simply was. We fell asleep on the rug by the fire, my head on his shoulder. When the generator shuddered, lights blinked, and the room remembered its corners. Neither of us moved. Let it be, he murmured. I did. At dawn we layered up. We stepped outside, and the cold argued with our cheeks. The snow had crusted and held our weight. Wade led, then drifted back to let me choose the line. He taught me to read small signs, a tuft of hair on bark, a wind, carved lip, the hush that falls when something larger decides to listen. We reached a clearing and knelt behind a fallen trunk. The light turned pale gold. A buck appeared, distant, haloed by his breath. Wade raised the rifle and then lowered it. He handed it to me. Feel the weight, he said. You don't have to fire to know it matters. I shouldered it, breathing how he taught me. The buck lifted his head, decided we were furniture, and moved on. The tension didn't disappear, it matured. It became a thread I could pull when the day frayed. In class, my hand drifted to my ribs, as if confirming a claim. Liam noticed I laughed quieter. Mom noticed I called more. On Sunday I packed. Wade tucked a thermos into my bag and kissed my forehead like he was signing a permission slip. You're safe, he said. Even when you're not here, I believed him. The drive back felt different. I wasn't fleeing a truth or chasing one. I was carrying it, warm as a secret, bright as a coal. What we did was simple. What it meant was not. The spark landed in dry grass. I'd been pretending wasn't there. It didn't burn out. It learned my name and waited, patient as winter, hungry as spring. Truly, classes and tests squeezed the week until it squeaked. For a day I drove back into the mountains pretending it would hold. The cabin light spilled on, to snow as if it had been waiting only for me. He hugged me warm and easy. We cooked in quiet, the stove ticked. Dawn, he asked. I nodded. We stepped into a blue hour that smelled like iron. Wade handed me the rifle, eyes on mine. Read the wind, he said. I did. A buck ghosted the tree line. My finger settled near the trigger, not on it. Wade's hand hovered at my shoulder, steady but not steering. Then another sound entered the woods. Tires on ice, a door slam, voices. I flinched. Wade stiffened. Through the birches, 2 men in blaze orange trudged toward the ridge neighbors I'd seen in town. One lifted binoculars. They were killing distance between us. Back, Wade whispered, guiding me behind a spruce. We crouched. The men laughed about a party, a kid from Syracuse, a name I recognized as mine. One said, he's been up here a lot with Wade. The other whistled, that the friend of the family. A pause, a laugh bent sharp. Sure, friend. Heat climbed my neck, not from the cold. Wade didn't breathe for a count of 5. The men moved on. When the woods closed again, the air had changed. Same trees, different country. Back at the cabin, Wade stoked the fire like it owed him. I reached for him. He stepped aside. They talk, he said. They always talk. Let them. You can leave this. I can't. I asked what that meant, and he opened a drawer I hadn't noticed, pulled out an old envelope, the kind that remembers hands. Inside, a photo of me at 16 under a high school banner. On the back, Mom's handwriting. Take care of my boy if he ever needs it. Wade looked at the fire, not me. She sent this when your dad left. I promised. Promised what? To be a place you could land, not a cliff. The words landed like a verdict. I laughed, wrong and bright. So am a promise, not a person. Don't do that. Was any of this real? Too real. That's the problem. He set the photo on the mantel. I said what felt stupid and brave. I choose this. He shook his head. You're 20. Choosing is supposed to be practice, not permanent damage. The sentence cut clean. He moved toward the door, then stopped. If I were a better man, I'd have said no at the start. Anger found me, hot and clarifying. Don't make me your good deed. He winced, but didn't cross the space between us. A crow argued with the roof. The silence took sides. I packed like a thief. Wade didn't stop me. At the door he tried soft truth. If they decide to make a story, it will be my name on the bulletin boards. My business, your mother's trust. You don't deserve that kind of education. I said, maybe it's the only one that counts. On the drive down, the radio filled the car with strangers. My phone buzzed once. Liam asking about dinner and then again. Wade, I'm sorry, I didn't answer. Third buzz. A photo of the ridge at dusk, empty as a decision you can't undo. Campus received me with fluorescent mercy. I stood under the shower until it went cold. The mirror showed someone older around the eyes, younger around the mouth, unfinished everywhere else. I wrote Wade a message I didn't send. You weren't a cliff. You were the ground finally holding. I deleted it. At 3 a.m., the ray pounded on the dorm door. Noise complaint, he said, bored. The noise was me, a body remembering a hand and unlearning it. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the dark have me. Somewhere up north, a promise cooled on a mantelpiece. Somewhere in my chest, the bond snapped like ice under a careless foot. Clean, loud, finaler, so I told myself because I needed the sentence to end. Morning didn't fix the weather inside. People moved through hallways with their coffees and their plans, and I learned to walk around a hole I couldn't show. I made it to class. I took notes. I kept my head down and my mouth brave, barely. I said present, and the word didn't believe me. The week after the break felt like walking with a pebble in my heart small, constant, impossible to ignore. I tried to study it away. Liam asked if I was sick. Getting there, I said. By midweek a rumor grew legs. I opened a local Facebook group and watched strangers build a bonfire out of 2 facts and guesses. Someone posted Wade's business number with a caption about protecting youth. I closed the app like it could bite. Mom called. Are you okay? Whose idea was the cabin? Mine, I said. She exhaled. I asked Wade to look out for you years ago. I didn't ask him for this. She didn't say the word. I'm not a problem to fix, I said, and we both heard how late that sounded. Thursday Wade's name lit my phone. I let it ring. He texted. They are calling. I'm telling the truth. You're an adult. You're safe. Come up if you want. Or don't. I typed replies and erased all of them. Friday night I drove anyway. The road looked dry and waste. In the mirror, 2 headlights grew and stayed. I changed lanes. They changed with me. When I slowed, they rode my bumper. I took the next eggs. It's service road through state land, and the lights followed. I killed my headlights, turned on. To a logging spur had shown me, and let the dark swallow us. The other car overshot, tires hissing. For a moment the world was only pines and my breath. I waited, then crept back out. I didn't feel brave. I felt cornered and awake. At the cabin, Wade opened the door like he'd been listening for my engine. We didn't talk. Heat met cold. My coat stayed half on. His hand found the back of my neck. They followed me, I said. He checked the window. You're safe now. I believed him for 1 breath, maybe 2. Danger adds what you thought you could subtract. Every hurt rearranged around the possibility of losing him to other people's stories. We ate without tasting. He kept glancing at the driveway like the night might grow a face. By the fire, the apology arrived. I made you into a promise, he said. I didn't give you a chance to choose. I shook my head. I chose. Then you took the choice away to save me from it. He winced. I'm not good at wanting things that might break other people. Then don't look at me like that, I said, and immediately did not mean it. We didn't rush. Our shoulders wrote a truce. When he leaned in, it waste and rescue it was return. His breath touched my mouth like a language we learned in secret and remembered by muscle. He pulled back. Still good, he asked. I said yes so quietly it felt like prayer. His hand paused at my ribs place. He always asked permission. Heat rose, slow and sane. We stayed in that narrow country where want is careful, and the body says thank you. We fell asleep on the couch, my palm on his chest, measuring a future by its steady beat. At dawn we made coffee. By noon the new threat knocked 3 short raps, official as a stamp. A county deputy stood on the stoop. Behind him, a neighbor watched from a truck, arms folded like a verdict. "We had a complaint," the deputy said. "Allegations about impropriety." He looked at me, then away. "You of age, 20, I said. The math finished. "Then you're two adults in a house. Feelings aren't my business." He left a card anyway. "If anyone harasses you, call." The truck lingered, then rolled away. Silence after an official knock is different, not fragile-armed. Wade opened a letter from the morning mail, a notice from the licensing board about a review of his contractor's permit, pending concerns raised by community members. He slid it over. My name wasn't on it, but I could hear my name between the lines. I covered his hand. "We can fight this." He nodded. "Maybe the fight is staying gentle." He looked at me, the look that said want and future in the same breath. "Maybe the fight is not letting them right us. We walked the property line like two men learning where belonging begins. Snow shifted underfoot, the air cut clean. I loved him in a way that made my shoulders square." On the way back, we found a page pinned to the railing with a hunting knife, a screen grab of the post, our names circled in red, the word predator typed by somebody who didn't know the first thing about prey. Wade pulled the knife free and folded the paper in quarters. "This is the part where we breathe," he said. We did. I texted Mom, "I'm okay. He's not who they say." She wrote back, "I never thought he was. Be careful with people who think loudly." We slept lightly, shoes by the door. When the wind pressed the eaves, we listened, not in fear, but in readiness. I wasn't a rumor, and neither was he. We were two men with heat between us and a small town trying to measure it. Let them, we had our own math now, and it started with one hand at my ribs saying this is allowed. The danger didn't pass. It evolved, but the reunion held, and the new threat gave us shape. Not a cliff, not a promise, just a line we would walk together, shoulder to shoulder, even if the whole county watched us count our steps. We kept walking, counting each step. The letter from the board said informal review, the kind of storm people rename until it takes a roof. Wade ironed a flannel like order might hold. I offered to go with him. "You don't have to be in the room," he said. "That's exactly why I should," I answered. Town hall smelled like coffee and winter boots, folding chairs. A mic that popped like old vinyl. Mom was there without warning, jaw set. She squeezed my fingers unsa permission and warning. They called Wade. A careful tie asked about community concerns. Another said power dynamics like a smirk. Wade's mouth tightened, then eased. "I build stairs," he said. "I don't push people down them." "Did you host him?" "Yes." "Is he of age?" "Yes." "Anything inappropriate?" He looked at me, then the mic. The air held. No. The word cracked something I needed. I stood before my legs agreed. "The chairwoman said, sir, this is," I said. "I'm the concern." I said I was 20, not a rumor. I went to the cabin for quiet that didn't judge. Wade never pushed or took. He waited, faces tilted toward me, hungry for spectacle disguised as truth. I added the dangerous part. "I care about him. If they wanted a villain," I said, "check the comments and the knife, not this house." "Are you saying there's a relationship?" the chairwoman asked. Mom's breath caught. Wade's silence felt like a hand I almost held. "I'm saying I chose," I answered. The attorney's voice was polite and hard. "Regardless of age, there's a standard. Maddox, do you acknowledge a romantic or intimate relationship?" Wade's eyes found mine in them, the ridge, the fire, the breath at my neck, the photo on the mantel. He turned to the board. "No," he said again, steady. "We're friends. I've helped his family for years. Betrayal doesn't have to shout. It can be a soft word used as a shield." My ribs remembered his hand and withdrew from the memory. Mom gripped my arm and kept the floor under me. A neighbor read about protecting boys. I laughed once, sharp enough to cut plastic air. The gavel banged like rented thunder. Outside the sun was bright and cold. Wade said my name. I kept walking until the wind slowed me. "They wanted a headline," he said. "A confession to hang you with. So you hung me yourself," I said, hating the accuracy. He flinched. "I chose damage I can carry. You chose a version of me that's easier to lose. I chose the one where you still get to be 20. Mom came over, eyes wet, voice iron. To me, I asked him to look out for you, not to stop time. To him, you could've told the truth without feeding them. Truth is, and a thing you hand a mob," he said. We drove to the cabin in separate cars like two drafts refusing to merge. Inside, he set his keys down carefully. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know. I wanted to hate him. My body wouldn't comply." The explosion arrived as honesty with nowhere left to hide. "I love you," I said, and the room took the heat. He closed his eyes. "I love you," he answered, wrecked. "I can't be the reason your life gets smaller," he said. I won't let this town teach you that love equals fear. He stepped closer, then stopped, as if respect and need had chalked a line. We stood inches apart, a fire between us and a county measuring smoke. His hand rose and didn't touch my ribs. Mine rose and didn't touch his jaw. We held there, safest almost and the cruelest. Say it wasn't real, I whispered. He shook his head. It's real enough to survive us doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. Maybe love here means choosing not to ruin each other. Night fell early. We ate because the body insists. He sat on the couch edge. I took the chair like I was learning distance. The fire burned down to testimony. When it was only coals, he said, they'll probably keep my license. They might not hire me. I can live with that. I can't live with you losing yourself trying to defend me. I slept in the spare room. The house made noises, pipes clacking, the small pop of cooling wood. I pressed my palm to my ribs and felt nothing where his hand used to explain the world. Before dawn he wrote a letter at the counter, shoulders squared like a man lifting a beam. What is it? A statement for customers, he said. Words that protect you even if they cost me. I nodded, then hated that I nodded. We stood with coffee in the doorway, 2 mugs and too much history for the hour. We should stop, he said. We already did, I said. The betrayal had become a choice laid bare. Save each other's futures by letting the present go. We didn't touch. We learned how not to. It hurt with the precision of a clean cut. I left at first light, and the rear view held him until the road curved and the world took him back. On the highway the sky paled empty. I turned off the radio and counted mile markers like beads. At 65 I almost turned around. At 70 I didn't. The phone buzzed once. Drive safe. I typed you too and didn't send again. The highway carried me back to campus, but nothing brought me back to myself. I sat through classes, scribbled half, notes, answered when called on, and no one knew the cost. My chest still carried the ghost of his hand, but now it felt like a scar instead of a promise. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, replaying his no in front of the board, softer than any bullet, but just as final. The betrayal wasn't just what he said. It was the silence after, the way he handed me back to the world without claiming me. And still, when my phone buzzed with his name, I couldn't erase it. I didn't answer either. Purgatory had its own rhythm. Mom tried to reach me. You'll survive this, she said. That's what scares me, I admitted. Surviving meant learning how to live with an emptiness that wasn't supposed to exist. One night I drove past the cabin without turning in. The windows glowed. His shadow crossed the curtains once, then vanished. I sat on the shoulder until the cold seeped through glass and bone, then drove away. He never knew I was there. Maybe that was mercy, maybe it was cowardice. Weeks later, a letter came in his handwriting. You were real. I was real. I only knew how to protect you by pretending otherwise. Forgive me, or don't. Just know you changed the math of my life. I folded it twice and hid it in a textbook no one borrows. The semester ended. People packed cars, made plans. I stood in the lot, keys in my hand, staring north. Part of me wanted to drive until the trees swallowed me, until his porch light found me again. Part of me knew that returning would only reopen what he had sealed, so I drove nowhere instead. The question hummed louder than any engine. If love survives even when unspoken, is it still love or only the shadow of it? And I realized shadows are what stay longest after the fire dies.